She was literally a little bit longer than my hand when she was born.
And they told us that she wouldn't make it. Rachel inspires so many people, inadvertently.
I regret it.
What do you regret?
Yelling at him because I was telling him, what is wrong with you?
She would just simply not even get out of bed. You're going along all day saying, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? It's contributing to the bifurcation of education in this country. But at the same time, I'm not going to short shrift my kid.
New York City is home to some of the world's worst public schools for children with special needs that warehouse their students in chaotic and unsupportive environments. Today, a growing number of affluent families are successfully suing the city on the grounds that these schools are so bad, taxpayers need to foot the bill to send their children to elite private institutions. What if the city were to provide all families with school choice, so that even learning disabled kids from poor homes could get an excellent education? The status quo is a source of enormous inequities. Upper middle class parents are able to work the system to get the very best for their kids. But who can blame them?
What is it? Stop laughing about it. You're gonna... Okay.
Faith Ritali, who asked that we change her name for this story to protect the privacy of her family, is a single mother of 3 boys who lives in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. When he was in the 3rd grade, her oldest son was diagnosed with dyslexia, attention deficit disorder, and severe anxiety.
From 2nd to 3rd grade, he was vomiting every single morning before he was going to school.
The city of New York recommended that she send him to a public school that specializes in serving children with disabilities. So she took a tour and was horrified.
You could see the students in the back of the classroom talking, disrupting. One teacher comes out and started screaming in the hallway, be quiet, be quiet. So it was very chaotic.
Although she couldn't afford the tuition, she enrolled him in one of Brooklyn's premier private schools for children with learning disabilities.
He walked in the school, he goes, oh my gosh, Mom, this is learning disability heaven. And he was so happy. Everyone was so nurturing. I knew they took care of my baby.
As a way to cover the annual tuition of about $45,000, she sued the city on the grounds that it had failed to provide him with an appropriate public option as required under the 1975 Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. When it turned out that her second son also had learning disabilities, Ritali once again sued the city to cover private school tuition, and now she's about to do it again for her youngest. And this is a growing practice. The amount the city spends annually on private school tuition has more than doubled in the last 6 years to $244 million. And the cost for each student rose to $55,000 last year, and it's likely to keep going up.
She would just simply not even get out of bed.
David Bernstein is a publishing executive who lives on Manhattan's Upper East Side. When his daughter started experiencing crippling anxiety at the age of 12, he and his ex-wife toured some of the special education programs within the public system.
And you visit these places, and it literally is a warehouse. There are places where they send kids who are no longer on an academic track, and they're not even really on a therapeutic track.
So they sued. Now his daughter attends a boarding school in Connecticut for kids with emotional and psychological difficulties, and the city covers the entire tuition bill of $138,000 per year.
I guarantee you there are other kids sitting in some of these warehouse schools who would benefit from being in the same environment my daughter's in.
Although it works out well for the minority of parents able to sue, the city simply can't afford to send every learning disabled kid to private school at an average cost of $55,000 per pupil.
It is draining hundreds of millions of dollars from classrooms that desperately need those resources to better serve the kids they have.
When Eric Nadelstern served as the second highest ranking education official under former Mayor Michael Bloomberg, the city fought back against families suing for private school tuition.
We've got 1.1 million kids in 1,800 schools, and part of the reason they're not being well served is we're significantly under-resourced. And diverting the resources in a way that benefits a few is not a solution to the problem.
This is not an option that parents are just happily deciding to do. They're doing it because they really feel that their child needs this.
Alexandra Hindez is an attorney at the law offices of Neil Rosenberg, a firm that handles about 1,000 cases a year of this sort. She says that if the system did a better job of educating kids with special needs, her clients would gladly send their kids to public schools.
I've been doing this for about 15 years, and I've seen the Department of Education reorganize their offices, their committees, I think 3 times at this point. There hasn't really been significant changes in their programming that would bring parents back to the system.
But the process of suing is out of reach for most poor families.
It required ability to navigate this legal maze of stuff. What do people do who don't have access to the high-powered lawyers and the fancy neuropsych on Park Avenue and all of this?
The biggest obstacle for poor families is that the process often involves fronting the money for private school tuition while waiting for the lawsuit to be settled or adjudicated. Bernstein had to front about $40,000 before the city started reimbursing him.
It had to be borrowed and scraped together from pennies in the couch. And I mean, it was really, it's an incredible hardship. And if you don't even have, you think most people don't even have the ability to raise a tenth of that kind of money.
Suing school districts to pay for private school for learning disabled kids happens all over the country, and it's a practice that's been affirmed by Supreme Court decisions in cases originating in Burlington, Massachusetts, Florence, South Carolina, and Forest Grove, Oregon. But it's a deeply flawed system. The question is how to provide poor families the same quality services without bankrupting municipalities. One approach would be simply to give parents the money for private school without requiring that they sue. There are currently 13 states with special education voucher programs, some of which base the amount students receive on the severity of their disability. Charter schools are another solution.
I did not know that we had an option to file some type of a legal suit to put her in private school. Our goal was always, we just have to get a school that can meet Rachel's needs.
This week that my wife mentioned that to me, I was like, wow, I didn't know that.
Every morning, Rachel Charlton and her parents make the 45-minute drive from the Bronx to Democracy Prep Pathways, a charter school program in Harlem that serves middle school kids with learning disabilities. For Rachel, whose learning challenges stem from the fact that she was born at just 23 weeks, the school has had an enormously positive impact.
We had a kid that just didn't believe in herself, struggled with self-confidence, and just feeling like she wasn't worth it and not good enough and stupid, because we actually had people call her that, dumb and stupid and all these things, to a kid that is soaring.
Hi, Mohammed. How are you? Nice to see you today. Socks.
A mission of the school is to build executive functioning skills and to create a sense of urgency. Duncan Scherer is the program's founder and executive director.
They come into school dysregulated, they come into school feeling unsuccessful, and our job is to provide an atmosphere that's predictable for them, that's filled with the routines that support their learning, considering that they're coming in many years behind grade level.
While private vouchers are anathema to New York's progressive political establishment, the city already has a robust charter school movement, and there's currently a push within the sector to better serve learning disabled students.
If we're not working with students who need us the most, then I don't think we're fulfilling our promise.
E is up first. E, edge, go. E, edge,
They're lacking at this point basic reading skills that should have been developed for most students at a first, second grade level.
I'll know you're ready when your posture is perfect and you're ready to begin.
It's unacceptable to say that we don't know that a kid's struggling or we don't know why. There's not a ton of debate over what to do with a kid who is dyslexic.
So on my map key, right, I'm going to draw that same squiggly bowl of pasta. And I'm
Scherer says the city's top private schools serve as a model.
Those are amazing schools, but their practices are replicable.
It does, right? This one?
Which is something I think we're doing here at Pathways.
And at a price point where these services can more realistically be offered at scale, and not just to kids lucky enough to come from families with the wherewithal to sue. Per pupil spending at Democracy Prep Pathways last year was about $34,000, or roughly 40% less than what the city is spending to send the average learning disabled student to private school.
People will always say it's a lack of resources. There's not enough resources within the system. I don't believe that that's true. I think it's an issue of expectations, and I think it's an issue of the quality of instruction that students are receiving.
I'm not gonna say that I don't think like any private institution would be able to deliver what the Pathways has delivered, but what I've seen is tremendous.
Whether it's through the real estate market or through hiring top-notch lawyers and consultants, middle-class parents have always managed to get great options for their kids. What the school choice movement is all about is extending the same privilege to everybody else.